I was certain I had found love again after losing my wife. Jennifer was everything I could have hoped for, and my kids seemed to like her too. The wedding was just 3 weeks away when she dropped the bomb that shattered everything. Looking back, I should have seen the signs, but love has a way of blinding you to the truth until it slaps you in the face. Before I continue this story, let me know where you are watching from in the comments, and if you have not already, please hit that like and subscribe button. Losing my wife Sarah was the hardest thing I ever experienced. The aggressive cancer took her within 6 months of diagnosis, leaving me alone to raise our 2 children, Thomas and Sophia. Thomas was 9 and Sophia was 6 when their mother passed away. The first year was a blur of grief, counseling, learning to be both mom and dad, and struggling to maintain my career as an architectural engineer. Thankfully, my firm allowed me to work from home 3 days a week, which helped tremendously with childcare logistics. My parents live about an hour away and have been incredibly supportive. They often take the kids for weekends when I need to catch up on work or simply need a moment to breathe. Without them, I honestly do not know how I would have managed those first few years. We went through family therapy together, which helped us process our grief and become even closer as a family unit. Thomas and Sophia are complete opposites in personality, but equally amazing kids. Thomas is now 12, sensitive and incredibly intelligent. He plays the violin beautifully, a talent he inherited from his mother. Since Sarah died, he has struggled with anxiety, often needing reassurance that I am not going anywhere too. Sophia, now 9, is outgoing and athletic. She plays soccer and has enough energy to power our entire neighborhood. She clings to me more since losing her mom, often crawling into my bed in the middle of the night just to make sure I am still there. We have our weekend traditions that provide stability and comfort. Sunday mornings are sacred for our pancake breakfasts, where we each take turns choosing the toppings. Friday nights are movie nights, with homemade popcorn and fort building in the living room. I rearranged my work schedule to never miss their school events, performances, or sports games. Before Sarah died, I made her a promise that our children would always come first, no matter what. It is a promise I have kept sacred. Our home is a 4-bedroom house in one of the best school districts in the area. We bought it when Sarah was still alive, planning for the future with possibly a 3rd child. Now it feels just right for the 3 of us, giving the kids their own spaces to retreat to when needed. I have dedicated myself to maintaining stability and routine for them, knowing how important that is after such a profound loss. I met Jennifer at a corporate event where my firm was showcasing some of our sustainable design projects. She works in marketing for a major retail company and was attending to network with potential partners. She approached me about my presentation, and I was immediately drawn to her confidence and intelligence. We exchanged business cards, and within a week she reached out suggesting coffee. Those initial coffee dates were just for us, without involving the children. I was cautious about introducing someone new into their lives unless I felt it could be serious. Jennifer seemed to understand completely, often asking thoughtful questions about Thomas and Sophia, showing genuine interest in them even before meeting them. At 34, she had a successful career, no previous marriages, and was very close with her family, especially her parents, who lived in the same city. After 2 months of dating, I felt comfortable enough to introduce her to the kids during a casual dinner at home. Jennifer arrived with thoughtfully chosen gifts for each of them. For Thomas, a book about famous violinists, and for Sophia, a soccer ball signed by a player from the local team. The evening went better than I could have hoped, with Jennifer engaging both children in conversation, asking about their interests, and even helping with the dishes afterward. The kids seemed to like her immediately, which was an enormous relief. We dated for 8 months before things became serious. During that time, Jennifer integrated seamlessly into our family activities and holiday celebrations. She offered helpful suggestions for home organization and minor improvements that made our daily routines smoother. We took several weekend trips together with the children, and Jennifer appeared to genuinely enjoy their company, even participating enthusiastically in their silly games and inside jokes. My friends expressed happiness that I had found someone who understood my situation and seemed to care about my children. I brushed off the occasional comments Jennifer made about the house being chaotic or the kids being loud, attributing them to her adjustment to family life after being single for so long. The first night she stayed over, I was nervous about how the children would react, but they took it in stride, Sophia even suggesting we make Jennifer a special breakfast the next morning. My feelings for Jennifer grew stronger with each passing month, and I began to hope for the complete family I thought we had lost forever. After 10 months of dating, I decided to propose. I involved Thomas and Sophia in planning the perfect moment, and they were excitedly supportive. Thomas suggested I hide the ring in her dessert at a fancy restaurant, while Sophia insisted there needed to be flowers, lots of flowers. The evening of the proposal we had dinner at an upscale restaurant overlooking the city lights. I had arranged for the ring to be presented with a special dessert surrounded by rose petals. When Jennifer saw it, her eyes welled up with tears, and she enthusiastically said yes. She seemed genuinely excited about becoming a stepmom, immediately hugging the children when they joined us for dessert, having been waiting with my parents at a nearby table. Our initial wedding discussions included the children in important roles. Thomas would be a junior groomsman, and Sophia the flower girl. Jennifer mentioned that her brother Kyle might be a good addition to the wedding party as another groomsman. We set the date for 6 months later, giving us enough time to plan without feeling rushed. The excitement of blending our lives and families felt palpable, and I had private moments where I thanked Sarah for somehow guiding us to this second chance at happiness. I first met Kyle at a family dinner at Jennifer's parents' house. At 26, he still lived at home currently, between jobs after being let go from his third position that year. Something about him immediately made me uncomfortable. He had an entitled attitude, making comments about eventually upgrading from what he called my starter home to a real house in a better neighborhood. Jennifer quickly defended him, explaining he was just going through a rough patch and did not really mean anything by his comments. Throughout that dinner, I observed how Kyle treated his parents with subtle disrespect, yet they continued to enable his behavior, laughing off his rude remarks and catering to his every need. The dynamic was uncomfortable to witness, especially when he made snide comments about the children, asking if they were always so annoying. On the drive home, I mentioned my concerns to Jennifer, but she dismissed them, saying I did not understand family loyalty, and that Kyle had always been her protector growing up. As wedding planning progressed, I noticed Jennifer becoming increasingly controlling about the details. Plans that initially included the children were changed without consulting me. When I brought up the budget, trying to be practical about expenses, Jennifer complained that I was being cheap. Her parents offered to contribute more financially if they could have more input on decisions, which only complicated matters. I found myself compromising more and more just to keep the peace, despite a growing sense of unease. Thomas began mentioning that Jennifer seemed different when I was not around, less patient and less interested in what he had to say. When I asked Jennifer about it, she dismissed his observations as typical preteen dramatics. I noticed she would often cut off the children when they tried to offer input on family matters, saying decisions should be made by the adults. During family movie nights, I caught her texting constantly, and when I glanced over, I saw most messages were with Kyle. We had agreed to live in my house after the wedding due to the space and the importance of keeping the children in their current schools. However, Jennifer began making increasingly critical comments about the layout, the decor, and even the organization of the kitchen cabinets. She made subtle remarks about the children having too much space for themselves, questioning why Thomas needed such a large bedroom just for one person, and suggesting Sophia had too many toys spread throughout the house. The first mention of Kyle needing a place to stay came casually over dinner one evening. Jennifer mentioned that her brother might need somewhere to crash temporarily after an issue with his landlord. I offered to renovate the basement as a short-term solution, thinking it would give him privacy while keeping the children's spaces intact. Jennifer seemed lukewarm about the idea, commenting that the basement was too far from the family and would make Kyle feel isolated. This led to increased tension whenever we discussed post-wedding living arrangements. I began noticing concerning changes in Jennifer's behavior toward Thomas and Sophia. Her patience with normal kid behaviors dwindled rapidly. She scheduled couple activities during times when the children had important events forcing me to choose. She criticized their table manners, their homework habits, and even the way they organized their rooms. Jennifer began suggesting they spend weekends with my parents to give us space, something that had previously been occasional but was now becoming a regular expectation. Thomas started withdrawing, spending more time in his room with the door closed. When I asked what was wrong, he eventually admitted that he felt Jennifer did not like him. Sophia came to me in tears one afternoon after Jennifer had harshly criticized her room as messy, despite the fact that she had spent all morning cleaning it to her best ability. When I confronted Jennifer about these incidents, she claimed she was just trying to help them improve and learn important life skills. The children became increasingly anxious about the upcoming wedding, with Thomas asking several times if things would change drastically afterward. One evening, I came home to find Jennifer's laptop open on the kitchen counter, with browser tabs displaying several prestigious boarding school websites. When I asked about it, she claimed she was just researching options for the future, not making any immediate plans. Over dinner that night, she casually mentioned friends whose children thrived away at boarding schools, receiving specialized attention and opportunities they could not get at public schools. Jennifer suggested that Thomas's anxiety might improve in a more structured environment with professional support away from the stresses of home. I firmly stated that the children would remain at home with me and continue at their current schools, where they were well adjusted and had support systems in place. Jennifer seemed to accept my decision, but became noticeably distant over the next few days. Later that week, during a late-night conversation, Jennifer mentioned her brother's latest financial troubles. Kyle had apparently lost both his job and apartment within the same week, due to what she called a misunderstanding with his boss and landlord. Jennifer began applying subtle pressure about our family obligation to help Kyle get back on his feet, reminding me how supportive her parents had been of our relationship. The situation escalated dramatically when I arrived home early from work one day to find Kyle in our house measuring the children's bedrooms with a tape measure. Jennifer had invited him over without telling me in advance. When I asked what was happening, Kyle casually mentioned he was trying to figure out which room would better accommodate his gaming setup and computer desk. Thomas and Sophia stood in the hallway, clearly confused and uncomfortable by this stranger evaluating their personal spaces. Jennifer acted as if this was completely normal behavior, offering Kyle refreshments and discussing wall colors that might need to be changed. I pulled her aside to question what exactly was going on, and her dismissive response that we needed to plan for the future sent alarms ringing through my head. This led to our first major argument, with me insisting that she was not respecting basic boundaries by bringing Kyle into our home to essentially claim space without any discussion. The following week, I returned home from a client meeting to find Jennifer showing Thomas and Sophia colorful brochures for boarding schools. Sophia was crying, thinking she was being sent away as punishment for something she had done wrong. Thomas had completely shut down, refusing to speak, and eventually locking himself in his room. I sent the children outside to play while I confronted Jennifer about what I was witnessing. She justified her actions by claiming she was only trying to give them opportunities they could not get at their local schools. The true shock came when I discovered she had already inquired about admissions, processes, and costs, even going so far as to schedule virtual tours without my knowledge or consent. My anger was palpable as I questioned how she could make such significant plans involving my children without even consulting me first. Jennifer became defensive, insisting she was only thinking about what was best for everyone involved. She pointed out the excellent academic programs, the extracurricular opportunities, and the network of connections the children would develop at these elite institutions. When I reminded her that Thomas and Sophia were still processing the loss of their mother and needed stability above all else, she dismissed their emotional needs as something they would simply get over with time. The situation finally came to a head during a heated argument in our bedroom, where Jennifer revealed her full plan. Kyle needed to move in indefinitely, not temporarily, and he required proper living space, not a basement renovation. In her mind, the logical solution was to send both children to boarding schools, freeing up their bedrooms for her brother. She expected me to pay the expensive tuition while essentially evicting my own children from their home. When I expressed my absolute refusal, Jennifer made a comment that froze my blood. She said the children were standing in the way of our happiness, and that I needed to decide what was more important to me, my new marriage or holding on to the past. Then came the ultimatum that changed everything. Either the kids would go to boarding school or the wedding was off. She stated coldly that Kyle was family, and if I truly loved her, I would need to prove my commitment by helping her brother in his time of need. I stood there in shock, suddenly seeing the person in front of me clearly for the first time. This was not the woman I thought I knew and loved. This was someone willing to displace two vulnerable children who had already lost their mother, all to accommodate her fully grown, irresponsible brother. The realization was painful but crystal clear that what I thought was love had been manipulation all along. Later that evening, I found Thomas in his room quietly packing some of his belongings into his school backpack. When I asked what he was doing, his answer shattered my heart. He said Jennifer had already told them they would be going to boarding school after the wedding, that it was all arranged, and they should start getting used to the idea. Sophia came in and asked in a small voice if I did not want them anymore, if they were too much trouble for me and my new wife. Thomas revealed that Jennifer had told them their presence made it difficult for us to start a new family properly, and that the best thing they could do was go away to school so I could be happy. They had actually been trying to cause less trouble around the house to be quieter and more helpful, thinking that might change the decision. The psychological damage already inflicted on my children became painfully apparent, and I spent hours reassuring them that they were not going anywhere, that they were my priority always. The next day, my parents arrived unexpectedly after receiving a concerned phone call from Thomas. They revealed something that made the situation even worse. Jennifer had approached them about taking the children temporarily after the wedding, claiming it was my idea to give us newlyweds some space. My mother had been suspicious enough to call me directly, but I had missed her calls during my workday. Armed with all this evidence of Jennifer's manipulation and deceit, I confronted her that evening. As the conversation escalated, Jennifer finally dropped all pretense of caring about my children. Her true priorities became crystal clear, with her brother's comfort taking absolute precedence over Thomas and Sophia's well-being. She made the shocking admission that she had never actually wanted to be a mother anyway, viewing the children as an unfortunate complication she had been willing to tolerate until a better solution presented itself. Her final ultimatum came in the cruelest terms possible. Choose your bratty kids or your future wife. In that moment, everything became absolutely clear to me. There was no choice to make at all. My children were, and would always be, my priority, my responsibility, and my greatest joy. No relationship was worth sacrificing their security and happiness, especially one built on such profound dishonesty. I ended the engagement immediately. Jennifer seemed genuinely shocked, as if she had never considered I would actually choose my children over her. Her reaction transformed quickly from surprise to attempts at backpedaling, claiming she had not meant things the way they sounded and that we could work something out. When she realized I was serious, her demeanor changed entirely to anger, hurling insults about my parenting and threatening to tell everyone I had been leading her on. The following weeks were painful but necessary, informing guests. The wedding was canceled, returning gifts, canceling vendors, and losing deposits. I was surprised by the support that came from unexpected places. My colleagues brought lunch to the office and listened without judgment. Neighbors offered to have the kids over for playdates to give me time to handle the logistics. Even the parent community at school rallied around us, with several families, including us in their weekend, plans to provide distraction and normalcy. The children experienced profound relief, mixed with lingering insecurity. We resumed family therapy sessions to process this new betrayal and rebuild the trust that had been damaged. Thomas worried that he had caused the breakup by complaining about Jennifer, while Sophia asked repeatedly if someone else would try to send them away in the future. Working through these fears took time and patience, but eventually they began to feel secure again. I had to forgive myself for not seeing the red flags sooner, for allowing someone into our lives who had caused such pain. The therapist helped me understand that manipulative people are skilled at hiding their true intentions, and that my desire to create a complete family again had made me vulnerable to seeing what I wanted to see rather than what was actually there. Rather than dwelling on wedding planning activities that now held painful memories, we created new family traditions. We started volunteering at an animal shelter on Saturday mornings, finding that helping others helped heal our own wounds. Thomas slowly regained his confidence, starting to play his violin again after weeks of leaving it untouched. Sophia processed her feelings through art therapy, creating colorful paintings that gradually shifted from dark themes to bright, hopeful scenes. My parents became even more involved in our daily lives, coming for dinner twice a week and taking a more active role in school pickups and extracurricular activities. We decided to renovate the house together, not to accommodate an unwelcome guest, but to make it even more our own. Thomas chose new paint for his room, and Sophia designed a reading nook in the corner of hers. These small changes became symbols of our fresh start as a family. Once the immediate stress was removed, both children showed remarkable improvement academically and emotionally. Thomas's anxiety decreased significantly, and he started joining more social activities at school. Sophia became more independent, no longer feeling the need to cling quite so tightly. We all came to realize that we had dodged a bullet as a family, that what had initially felt like a devastating loss was actually a narrow escape from a truly toxic situation. Gradually, laughter returned to our home. Movie nights became silly again, with popcorn fights and terrible impressions of movie characters. Sunday, pancakes evolved to include elaborate decoration contests with fruit and chocolate chips. The shadows that had begun to darken our home during Jennifer's presence lifted, allowing light and joy to filter back in. 6 months after the canceled wedding, we had moved forward in ways I could not have anticipated. Our family bond was stronger than ever, our communication more open and honest. I heard through mutual friends that Jennifer had indeed moved her brother into her apartment and was already regretting the decision, as he showed no signs of getting his life together or contributing to expenses. I ran into Kyle at a local store one afternoon. He was still unemployed and complained bitterly about Jennifer nagging him about job applications. There was a moment of awkward recognition between us, an understanding that his sister had sacrificed something valuable for his benefit, though he seemed incapable of appreciating the magnitude of that sacrifice. I felt nothing but relief as I watched him walk away. At a parent-teacher conference, I met Maria, one of the new teachers at the children's school. Her kindness toward Thomas, recognizing his musical talent and sensitive nature, caught my attention. Over the following months, our paths crossed at school events, and a friendship slowly developed. Unlike my relationship with Jennifer, this connection evolved naturally, without rushing or pressure. Maria had a wonderful way with both children, respecting their boundaries and never trying to replace their mother. The contrast between healthy relationship dynamics and the manipulation I had experienced became increasingly clear. Maria never expected to be the center of attention, understanding that my children needed to come first. She offered support without making demands, suggestions without criticism, and affection without conditions. If our friendship eventually developed into something more, it would be built on a foundation of mutual respect rather than convenience or compromise. Through this difficult experience, I learned profound lessons about what true family means. It is about protection, not the sacrifice of the vulnerable for the convenience of others. Real love adds to your life rather than diminishing it or forcing impossible choices. I came to understand the vital importance of listening to my children's concerns about the adults in our lives, recognizing that they often see truths that our emotions blind us to. I learned to recognize red flags in relationships and not dismiss them, no matter how much I wanted things to work out. The process of trusting my instincts again, after being manipulated, was challenging but essential. There is a deep peace that comes from making the right choice, even when it is difficult or painful in the moment. Perhaps most importantly, I realized that temporary loneliness is far better than betraying those who depend on you for their security and well-being. Today, our lives are filled with the ordinary moments that constitute real happiness, the simple routines and inside jokes that form the foundation of family. Sometimes losing what you thought you wanted leads to a profound appreciation for what you already have. Have you ever had to make a difficult choice that ultimately led to unexpected happiness? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more real-life stories. And remember, those who truly love you will never ask you to sacrifice your children. Thank you for listening, and I wish you wisdom in all your family decisions.